Sometimes when I think of the Christmas holiday season, I think of the song I'll Be Home for Christmas. And I suddenly realize that someone usually was never home at Christmas: Santa Claus and Bob Hope. I had the opportunity to sit down with Bob Hope one day and conduct a major interview about his career and the importance of all of those holiday USO shows. He started by telling me that he always did his radio show at NBC in Los Angeles, but he was asked to go on the road, and when that happened, everything changed.
Well, you know, we were doing our shows at Sunset and Vine, and the producer, Al Capstaff, said they want you down at March Field next year. I said, "What's March Field?" He said, "That's an Air Force base in Riverside, California." I said, "Well, why?" He said, "Well, they just want you down there." I didn't know he had a brother in the service down there. Luckily for me.
Yes.
You know, I found myself on a bus, and we went down there and did the show, and it was immense. The audience was so hot and beautiful, you know. I said, "How long has this been going on?" And then we went down to Camp Pendleton the next week, then San Diego. Then in December, war broke out. Then it became dramatic.
Yes.
And then we really went for 5 years all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
We did the shows, you know. And that's the luckiest thing that ever happened to me.
Before that, though, if I may go back even further for a moment, in Vincennes, Indiana, there's the old Pantheon Theater.
Yeah.
A friend of mine is trying to restore that theater, and it is the place where Red Skelton saw Ed Wynn perform for the first time. And Skelton told me that when Ed Wynn took him backstage and let him look through the peephole in the curtain, that was when he discovered an audience. A lot of people, such as yourself, you may have played big theaters, but didn't you spend a lot of time in vaudeville in those circuits in rural America?
Oh, hell yeah. I started at the bottom. As I remember playing someplace else, one place in Indiana. When I walked in, I picked up the paper to check my billing. It said Ben Hope. And I said, "Wait a minute." I watched in the manager of the paper. I said, "What is this Ben Hope?" He said, "What do you mean? What's your name?" I said, "Bob Hope." He said, "Who knows?" And I didn't know how to get out of the office.
There's no exit for that, is there? No. But I was looking at the roster of that little rural theater, that John Philip Sousa, the Marx Brothers, Ed Wynn, probably you were there at one time. But people think in 1938, you made the big broadcast of 1938, that all of a sudden, overnight, you were a star. But as many other overnight sensations, you were in Broadway, of course, but before that, you were out there, they think, trotting the boards.
Oh, sure.
And it was the movies that did it.
Yeah, sure. It was a combination of the whole thing, you know, the radio and the movies and Crosby. So seriously, because Bing was a big hit, and we used to do my show, and I'd do his show, the Kraft show, you know. And just the combination. And, of course, when we made the road picture, it burst wide open.
You were like brothers to many people. That it was a feeling you were brothers.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had that feeling together, and we criticized each other, and tore each other up, and so on. And people loved that, like brothers do.
Sure. In your book, the latest one, you also mention the fact that you were put in a rare position of almost being a reporter, particularly in Vietnam, that you went out to this far part of the world, but because some material didn't work, you felt more. There was no Ernie Pyle in Vietnam, that you all of a sudden were the litmus test, in a way, to the feelings of those boys over there.
Yeah. Oh, we went there 9 straight Christmases. I think back to that. That's a lot of travel, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's too bad there's no frequent flyer mileage for the millions of miles you've done.
No, I flew back from England the other day, 11 hours, and I said, "Oh, boy, this is a boring trip. Boy, oh, boy." I forgot those trips we took from here to Vietnam, where you fly forever, you know?
Planes with no windows.
Oh, something.
But you haven't, I don't know anyone who's been, except for Santa Claus, which many people think you are, that has been away from home at Christmas more than you have.
That's true. It's true. When we stopped doing that, they sent some troops. Some troops came up from San Diego, and they came up to this house. A few Marines, a few Air Force, and a few Army. And they walked in. They said, "Look, You've always come to us. We just want to come to you this Christmas.
It's nice.
Yeah, pretty damn nice. Make you cry a little bit.
You had a fairly regular cast of people. Jerry Colonna, who must have been a very funny, warm man.
Yeah.
And of course, the regular people who went with you, Martha Ray, who seemed to be in
Francis
the
Langford.
Francis Langford. Did they share the same gusto? I almost get the impression that you couldn't hold them back, that you didn't have to ask, that they would just automatically be there.
Absolutely. They were ready. Patty Thomas, these people just wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
I think you get the feeling after a while what it means to people. You know, outside of your commercial appeal, you get to feel what the trick. Now, I have letters out here that I can't read in my office in a drawer. It's from mothers and parents of kids that I entertained that never came back.
Mm.
And they're so sad, I don't want to read them. They make me cry, you know. But it shows you what they thank you for, because you were the last one to give them any fun, any entertainment. And they write home and they say, boy, we saw the Bob Hope show.
You say in your book that you thank them for the memories, that we quite often think it's the other way around.
Well, maybe it's both ways.
I guess. Yes.
Yeah.
Also, you mentioned in there, and I don't know whether it's a little-known fact or not, that you had mentioned or tacitly been offered the chance to play for the POWs in North Vietnam.
Oh.
It never came about.
That's right.
But,
that's right.
What was that? The feeling of just that prospect.
I went up and talked to this guy, and I talked to one of the North Vietnamese, you know, who was sort of a son-in-law of Ho Chi Minh, and I had a meeting with him. And this fella admired me for my pictures, and the Army guy told me, he said he's never talked to anybody, but he wanted to talk to you because he's seen the road pictures and so and so and so. Isn't that interesting?
Yes. And I think it was the road to Hong Kong where you befriend the young child.
Yeah, and I tried to talk him into some kind of a piece, you know, and I missed one bet, which I hate myself for. I should have said I want to go in and see Ho Chi Minh, and I know damn well he would have fixed it up in Hanoi, you know, so I could go in there and talk to him because he was that interested in me.
I want to go back, if I can, to the liaison that you formed. You have had, over the years, some very high-level, not just acquaintances, but friends playing golf with Eisenhower. I know you dearly love golf. The evolution of you as a song and dance man, as an entertainer, who suddenly changes direction and becomes an ambassador of sorts, becomes a reporter, it didn't happen overnight. But there is that sudden turn that happened when you found the camp shows.
Yeah. Well, you know, when we finally got into television, where we filmed the stuff, you know, we got a wide audience, a big audience for that. And it gave them a chance to see faces of the kids. And it was just, I'm going to put that out sometime. I had an idea of putting out faces, just audience, shots of kids in the audiences, you know, looking up, laughing, serious when somebody's singing a serious song. I think people would be interested in it, especially people that had kids over there and relatives of those kids.
Here you have specials that always have the highest or next to highest rating, and yet you still take the time to promote.
Well, I think it's a good thing to do, and I don't mind that at all. And I was on the phone today with a couple of places in the country, and I don't mind. I think it's a good thing to do, you know, because the promotion is very important.
What was the closest that your group came to not making it? I mean, there's, of course, the tragic story of Glenn Miller disappearing during the war. But you were saying in Beirut something was bombed just after you left. You were very close to... you've had some close calls, haven't you?
Yeah, we've had a couple of close calls. One was in Vietnam when they bombed the hotel 5 minutes before we got there, and luckily we were held up at the airport to wait for the cue cards for Barney McNulty. And we sat there, and there was all this smoke, and I was sitting there with this general in a Jeep, and he said, "Run over there and see what that is." fellow came back and said, there's a fire over there. What actually happened, they bombed it, killed 2 people and injured 99, and we were supposed to be in that the Brinks Hotel. We were supposed to be in that hotel 10 minutes before, but we were delayed, thank God. And we've had a lot of things happen to us.
So you have a strong empathy with the GIs for a lot of reasons.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
I think so. I think everybody does. You know what they're doing. They're over there putting their life on the line, really, for you and the country.
Can you really, is there a difference in wartime and peacetime as far as not just the GIs, but in general, as far as the way audiences react? Does war put people in a different edge?
Oh, I think so. Oh, sure. Sure they do. Sure they do. They're conscious of people really out there fighting for them. And that makes it a little different because so many people have relatives in there in the service.
I think the entertainment community in general has always done such good work. I saw a movie called Stage Door Canteen the other day in which everybody played a little bit part. And I was hearing a reading on public radio of a book, I think it's written by Jack Benny's daughter, if I'm not mistaken, but talking about his experiences, that Benny did much more work during the war than a lot of us know about.
That's right. That's right. Jack entertained quite a bit.
Jack Benny, I think, is the one entertainer that I wish I were old enough now that I could have met at one time.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't. I love Jack Benny. He's a wonderful man. And a heart. He went down to Mexico and did some big benefit down there. And I didn't know it until this woman called me from Mexico. And she used to be a movie star up here. Lived in Mexico, and she called me and said, would you come down and do the so-and-so benefit? I said, how'd you get my number? She said, Jack Benny gave it to me. He was down here a month ago. And I asked him what stars would come down and help our benefit. It was a very important benefit. And he said, Bob Hope. So I called him on the phone. I said, listen, do me a favor. Don't book any benefits for me. I can handle my own benefits. And he fell down. He laughed. He was so soft and good. He had a hell of a heart.
Mel Blanc, I spent part of a day with him. Wonderful man himself. Told me that Benny told his writers every week, no cheap jokes. But by the time the show was written, there was always a cheap joke. The man was just the opposite of the persona
That's right.
that he portrayed.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of benefits, you must have the world knocking at your door to go be there. It must be tough to turn people down.
Well, no way you could ever do it all. There's no way, because they find out that you did this, and they want you. That means there's 100 different benefits want you, and that's a tough thing.
Well, one of your trademarks is this is Bob USO Hope, or this is Bob American Red Cross Hope. You always put the agency or the fundraiser that you're putting in there.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of your signatures, I guess. I was reading all the songs you've introduced, and I don't know why it stands out in my mind, but it seems that everyone stole Silver Bells after you did the song.
Yeah. We got a big check the other day for Silver Bells.
Oh, nice.
A real big check.
After all these years.
Yeah. And the writers, of course, they're thrilled with it. So they got bigger checks.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and they deserve it, too, because it's a pretty tune.
It's one thing you said in your book that that writers are important. I think everyone knows that a comedian doesn't write all of his stuff, that you have a group together, but collectively, you've always been quick to say, yes, they're there. I don't do all of this myself.
Oh, no. No, I've had a staff ever since I've been in radio. Have to have it.
By the way, I found a tape that you had made at Camp Hope in Cleveland in 58 or 59. You went to a dedication. Is it a scout? Is it still there?
Yeah, I forgot all about that.
Well, it was UPI. We have a huge archive, and I'm pulling out tapes, and it said, Bob Hope, Cleveland, Ohio, Camp Hope.
Yeah.
And it was a banquet, and they were dedicating You had just dedicated the camp there.
Yeah. I go back there once in a while. I have a lot of friends in Cleveland. I go back there, see them.
Got to go back to the old neighborhood sometimes.
Sure. Oh yeah, it's great. I went to England and went to the place I was born.
Oh, that is the old neighborhood.
It really is. Yes, sir. And I have a theater there now, the Bob Hope Theater, and I went to the Palladium, and we raised £67,000 to take care of the theater. They have children's programs and all this stuff. And it's a nice building, nice solid building.
Well, Bob, thank you very much.
Good seeing you again.
I got to know Bob Hope first on the telephone. As a national editor, every time someone famous would die, we would call Bob Hope to get his reaction, because he worked with just about everybody. By the time Bob Hope finally died, there were few left to call to ask about him. The thoughts of legendary Bob Hope. I'm Dennis Daly.